Hello and welcome to Learning Curve, a podcast exploring what it means to teach and learn now that generative AI tools can do things we thought only humans could do. I'm Jeff Young. I'm a longtime education reporter. You're hearing the sound of 3D printers. 45 of them, actually, taking up a whole wall of a room, all humming away at once. I heard these sounds while I was at Duke University this summer in what is called the Innovation CoLab, which it has a mission of providing the latest tech tools to profs and students here, and not just for serious academic projects, as is clear as I look at a table near these printers where plastic items people have printed here are waiting to be picked up. I see something that's like a flower pot looking thing with, plastic, but it looks like a flower. What's that one?
It's a little like dragon looking, laying on its coins. We get a lot of these toy looking things.
That's Michael Faber. He's assistant director of the Innovation CoLab.
We think it's important that people go download a dragon on Thingiverse and print it, because then they have sort of a low stakes way to test and learn the process. But really it's stuff like this that is more
That's an
interesting
arc.
to me.
It looks like some sort of like building block of sorts.
Exactly, right. I have no idea what this is for, but I'm guessing it's a critical piece of some larger assembly.
Right.
We invite anyone to come use this space, students, faculty, or staff, doesn't matter what for. Could be personal projects, could be academic support, could be whatever. And the idea is it's a sort of unfettered place to explore your creativity and your curiosity around technology.
I was visiting to talk about AI, of course, because the CoLab is also a place on campus where any professor or student can walk in and get help trying out these AI tools. And it's clear that Duke is trying to bring the same spirit and approach that it's used for previous technologies, for things like AI chatbots.
Like your first print is probably not going to be earth-shattering research.
That's Evan Levine, Senior Director of IT Services and Support at Duke.
But and that's good, right? These are very low cost.
This one is not serious.
No, that is not allowed, right?
Looking at
It's a NC State logo. Okay. Yep, someone had 3D printed the logo of Duke's big rival.
We feel, and this is something from very early on, we saw a lot of schools doing 3D printing where they would provide the print for you, right? You would sort of send a job, they would do it professionally, they were lowering their failure rates, they were decreasing, and so on. But the end result was the goal. For us, the process has always been kind of actually the more important part. We want students to come in, learn how to do it, print some piles of plastic spaghetti, right? And figure out why that happened and how to modify the file or what settings to change on the printer. And kind of like make the learning that goes along with this one of the reasons to do it. And so we still live by that today. And like these materials that come off of these particular printers are very, very low cost. Right, like the educational value.
This is not driving up the cost of higher ed.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's not.
I wanted to visit Duke because it's a place that has planted a flag to offer extensive AI resources to its faculty and staff and students. Earlier this summer, the university announced what it calls Duke GPT as part of a big university-wide initiative to support the latest AI tools on campus. That means anyone with a Duke login can get free access to ChatGPT or Microsoft's Copilot, and also a custom-built version of ChatGPT that's been trained with specialized data from Duke, like the course schedule and the student directory and faculty directory. All kinds of Duke information is kind of in this chatbot ready to be queried.
It's happening so fast. We joke about how slow higher ed can be to move. We don't have that option right now. We don't have that ability. Like we cannot let it take that long. So we're all kind of learning how to pick up the pace together.
So I was curious to sit down with Evan and Michael to get a sense of why they think a college should provide these tools. And I was also curious about what are the interesting new uses that people are finding as they're starting to dig in and use AI. I did notice, though, that Evan and Michael are pretty careful to talk about how they're bringing AI tools to campus. Because after all, AI is a lot more complicated of a technology than 3D printers, because no one's worried on campus about a 3D printer taking their job, but with generative AI...
I think there's a lot of concern on a campus, of course, about not only can how AI be used and how will it improve things, but also how might it be a threat, and how do we handle that as well.
Lots of professors around the country these days are worried about potential downsides of AI. Some have raised concerns about environmental impacts of the tech. Others object to how big AI companies have built their language models with all this information on the internet without really compensating the authors. And there's also a worry about the impact on students, who might be tempted to outsource their work to ChatGPT. It turns out a big driver behind the decision here to make sure every student can get access to these tools is that if they turn out to be a way to boost learning, Duke leaders want every student to have equal access.
Sort of there's this equity piece too, right? Where it's, if it is something that's going to be beneficial, how do we make sure that it's in everybody's hands equally? How do you ensure that you're not providing an advantage to those that have access to certain forms of AI versus those who don't? For us, that's a fine line of we need to do that without overly promoting it, and faculty won't be happy if they feel that it's sort of running amok on campus either. And so we're in pretty early stages right now of discussing both sides. How do we better use this thing? How do we prepare people for careers using this thing? How do we make faculty comfortable with that? How do we support faculty in places where they don't want to see it applied? How do we help faculty apply it in useful ways to their courses? It's kind of become the topic. I don't think I've gone a day without having to talk about this in many months.
People aren't asking you about 3D printers as much.
Correct.
I think the equity is a prerequisite to a lot of the more harder questions too, right? Like, we can't go to faculty and say, here's how you could use this in your course if somebody's not going to have access to it, right? Or if you're saying like, okay, you can do this, but everybody needs to have a plus subscription to ChatGPT, then all of a sudden you might be excluding people from being able to do the thing that you're trying to do. So solving the access problem, I think, is a prereq to then working out what those interesting use cases, those learning focused, teaching focused use cases, not just answer focused, things that we know AI can do, but like, what's the Duke value proposition that we can bring to this? Is how do we build systems, tools, infrastructure that actually improve outcomes, not just replace things? And I think that's where my head is at and what we're trying to build towards.
It turns out there are also legal and policy reasons that Duke and a lot of other colleges want to provide AI chatbots for the campus themselves. Because the free version of ChatGPT and Claude and lots of other AI tools pose challenges for security and privacy for colleges and other organizations. The deal in most cases when you enter a prompt into ChatGPT is that you're giving the company the right to use that information to train the company's AI models. That actually means that any private information you might type in, let's say you paste in some sensitive information from a research project to have it help you sort through it, whatever you type in actually could come up as an answer in someone else's ChatGPT search, since it's all getting fed into this big artificial brain. So when Duke or other colleges set up these official versions and sign a contract with an AI company or pay a usage fee for students and professors, part of the deal is that the companies are promising not to use any information that's entered in any other way. In other words, these big AI companies, they're promising to keep the information private, provided that someone is paying the fee. And there are other benefits to this Duke GPT approach. Evan and Michael's team are also building tools that let students and professors kind of spin up their own custom chatbot based on materials they want to analyze with AI. And one thing some professors are now trying is to build chatbots for their students in a class that contain lecture notes and other information so that students who might be confused can query it.
This is giving the faculty member an easy way to actually put the course materials somewhere that students can then go ask questions against it. And to make that an educational opportunity all around, it's not just about giving them an answer. That sort of service is trying to lead them to the answer, right? So they're not just getting back the answer's 8. It's like, asking questions. Could it be this way? Is it this way because of this? The faculty member is able to see what questions students are asking, which I think is going to be very valuable for them in sort of assessing, hey, what are the pieces of this people aren't getting, or what areas do I need to be providing more teaching in? And then making that easy for faculty to use, right? So we don't want everybody to have to be a programmer to go figure this stuff out, right? We want to be able to provide sort of simple containerized or unique, smaller model access, where it's as simple as like, hey, put your documents here and answer a couple questions, and this is ready to go.
It sounds like you have a class, at least one, right, where you are piloting this kind of small language model of professors, like to ask the bot. The students can ask the bot questions.
Right now, these are basically like chatbot, textbook as chatbot, basically, right? I mean, it's like I want to interrogate the content of my course. The textbook is a good piece of corpus material for that to be able to have a good knowledge base. We're finding that some of the classes are using it very differently, right? The law class, I think we found that uses it more as like a searching mechanism, and then we'll go to the source material and almost use the citation as the key thing that they're finding, and then go back to the source material and say, okay, I need to go read about that case or whatever. Versus the STEM classes that are using it are more like, explain this in a different way, or like, help me understand this concept, in a lateral thinking way to the exact way that I've read it in the textbook or that I've been presented it in a class. Yeah, there's so many use cases too. I mean, even just beyond like the academic side of things, we're also working with the mechanical engineering department to make a better course advisor, like an advisor essentially. The people that help the faculty that help you pick your classes, plan your 4 years here, get you prepared for your career. The faculty who do that work mostly get the same questions all the time, right? So it's like, what class do I need to take? What's the best class for me here? But what they actually do best at is the sort of questions that come after those basic ones, right? And so if they're spending less time answering the like logistical questions of like, okay, you need ME 120 whatever to graduate. Okay, now let's talk about what you actually want to do for your career, what things you can be working on project-wise, how you can better prepare for interviews. Things like that are much more worthwhile use of their time. And so if we can eliminate some of the low-hanging fruit in terms of like the administrative questions that they also have to ask, maybe that brings them in with more armed with an understanding and can have a more fruitful conversation when they actually do spend time with the faculty.
So academic advising, to have it be a co-pilot for the advisor to help answer some of these kind of boring but important questions of like, what do you need to graduate, but then have the other more human conversation with the human.
Yes, I mean, for the advisee also, I mean, it could be used for both, but the student could go ask those basic questions. Maybe even the bot might be programmed to sort of like defer to the advisor for certain things, as opposed to try to answer everything and go off script. It's like, I'm good at answering these things. That question you just asked is a really good thing to talk to your advisor about. Like, go find them and do it, but I'll help you with this other stuff that's much more sort of logistic. I'm going abroad. Which class do I need to take this semester? Blah, blah, blah.
I feel like in so many ways, it's like the AI is not as Michael said, the AI is not replacing something, it's enhancing it. It almost, you could almost think of it as like prioritizing the human experience in many of these ways, right? Where it's like, instead of having to spend your time doing this repetitive, sort of maybe less meaningful task, you are freed up to focus on the areas where you really need the faculty member to be the one directly addressing this, or to be like really providing a much more customized answer on something that's not the same repeated task over and over again. And I think that plays into a little bit sort of where this comes into teaching as well. When you get into like, software development or programming, it's not that we just don't need developers anymore. It's that developers are now the human sort of in the loop using AI as a tool, or reviewing AI work and again, prioritizing their time to do the thing that maybe AI can't do on its own.
This is the argument that I'm hearing a lot. when it comes to how generative AI can help in education, that it can free up time for more human interactions. And I totally see that that could really help in certain situations. Maybe advising is one of those good ones. But I also know that plenty of people are worried that these tools could creep in and actually crowd out human conversations over time. I think there is if things get so efficient with the tools, is there, sometimes I wonder, what else is left? Sometimes I'll just even say, AI is probably coming for my job, in some way. There's been some recent articles about, maybe not this part where I'm talking to you guys, but, please keep me around, y'all. But, the idea is, it can free me up, it'll transcribe, and I'm like, oh, that's freed me up. Okay, good. AI helped me that. But then it can organize all the material and tell me what the most interesting topics are. I'm like, wait, that's my job. That's the part that's really human. And I do wonder sometimes, I'm like, are they doing the thing where they're going a next level? Or is it just people I don't have to go to class because now the bot did it for me.
You're getting into such an existential sort of AI conversation here that, I can only give you my personal opinion.
I'll take it.
I don't think so. I feel like the more I learn about it and the deeper I get into this, the less worried I am about that, at least in the meantime.
Because of how poor the tools are, or because I
wouldn't say poor, but they're limited in a way, and they work really well at helping us do things, but they're so far from doing those things themselves. And I still think humans sort of crave interaction from other humans and learn from human experience in ways that it's not going to be desirable, right? I mean, much like these are the same questions we asked about video. Will video replace teaching and on, right? Well, we can just provide access to a video about this, or one of the ones right? Or will MOOCs, right? The MOOC craze, massive online open courses. Well, there's not going to be an institution anymore, unfortunately. Sorry, everybody. So far from the truth, right? I feel like we're kind of going the same direction with this. It's amazing technology. It's really impressive stuff. I'm excited about what we're going to do with it, but I feel like we're a long ways from it being an existential threat to us. That's just not what I'm seeing.
There's a little bit also right now of I think about the art world, and what AI is doing to the art world, and that's obviously fraught with a lot of questions and ethical challenges. But, then you can make these interesting comparisons too of well, what happened when photography came around, right? A new medium comes. The first thing it does is it tries to mimic the mediums that came before it. So initial photography, looked like paintings, right? But then once it's around for a little while, it develops its own sensibilities, it develops its own look, its own culture, right? Street photography, things like that come up because the technology allows a new area of interest, of growth, of whatever. I think we're at the part where photography is still looking like paintings, in the AI metaphor of it, right? AI is still trying to just sound like a person. It's trying to, replace the mediums that we have already, versus having its own style, having its own applications. And I think that's where we want to encourage a lot of creativity around what we can use these tools for. And going back to some of the collab stuff, we've been trying to, in particular, explore all of these things that are, sort of important projects like this big AI gateway and the course recommenders and things like that, but also trying to figure out what that unique AI thing is also. And so we've had a couple projects that I love talking about because I think they're really sort of left field uses of AI that are maybe helping to define that in the future. One of the ones that some of our students.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just a pause for a second for everybody. This is for you, the good stuff, the parts that weren't just we had painting and now we're going to take a photograph of the same exact thing.
Right. Yeah. So, actually, ironically, the project is about photography, but so one of my favorite projects that we've been working on for a little while is called the Poetry Camera. And the idea with this is that what if you could build a camera that didn't take a picture, but it took text, and that was the output, right? So LLMs are great at producing text. They're great at actually now looking at images and creating text from images. And so what if you could make a camera that when you took a picture, it produced text based on not only the picture, but like the whatever inputs you want. So we built this camera. It's not quite done. It's sort of an exploded mess of wires, but it does currently work. It will eventually have an enclosure to look like a camera. But the idea is it's got a Raspberry Pi, it's got a camera associated with it, it's got a bunch of knobs and things like that. And you can set different parameters. So for example, you set the whimsy to 100, or you set the time period to Gen Z, or you set it to Shakespearean, or you set it to whatever, and then you can set the focus ring of how coherent you want the thing to be, whether it's in focus or out of focus.
That's like the abstraction level.
Exactly. And so then when I take a picture, it sees that image, it gets all these parameters, and it produces a poem or a roast or whatever we want it to do based on what it sees. And so it produces Gen Z, highly whimsical, not very coherent poem about you that I just took a picture of. And so that's, I think, starting this, the collab is serious play, right? Like we want to be able, like that is a real project, involves like playing around with the most modern tools that we have right now to a sort of whimsical end that is meant to inspire and delight, right? So we are both playing in that area because it's inspiring and we want to get people thinking about creative uses of this technology. But it's also heavily informing a lot of the big serious work that we're doing on infrastructure and the stuff that we're building that is going to be enterprise IT services, might power something like that next year. Whereas this year it's like we're just investigating these things, using the cloud tools, et cetera. But what are the infrastructure needs that the university is going to face in order to do serious but fun, or serious and serious things in the future? And that's like, I think, kind of where my head is at in terms of like the kinds of projects that we can do that inspire students, that get them excited. We can bring that to an event and we can take your picture and you can walk away with, it prints it out. So like it's a little receipt printer at the bottom. And so it's like a Polaroid that I can hand to you. That's a little poem about you. And so then it's, they're walking away with a memento that's like, AI made this thing. It's a unique use of AI, but it's also just a serious application of using APIs and front end and back end and cyber physical and electronics and everything that we support here.
Again, back to those examples of the things we saw out here with your 3D printers and some of these machined, laser cut, and then so somebody could then start with the dragon on coins and then move to something more serious.
Exactly.
After the break, I talk with a Duke student about her views on AI and what it means to have all these free AI tools at the university. Stay with us. Hey everyone, just cutting in here real quick with a programming note. Last week I started a newsletter for this podcast. I did that on Substack, and I'm going to use that to kind of announce episodes and share more about the topics and some show note information. You can find that at learningcurve.fm and click on the word newsletter. Okay, back to the episode. I visited Duke back in June, and at that time, articles about student misuse of AI were going viral, including one I'm guessing many listeners might remember. It was in New York Magazine with the headline, "Everyone is cheating their way through college." And that seemed like an interesting backdrop when Duke and several other colleges were buying AI tools for everyone on campus. So I wanted to hear from a student at Duke about all this. I connected with Muke Akume, a sophomore who is still deciding what to major in. She's thinking between mechanical engineering and pre-med. She actually helped build Duke GPT over the summer as part of a 10-week educational program at the university called Code Plus. Right now, I'm hearing, and you're probably reading, a lot of concern about students are all just cheating with ChatGPT or some other AI. I guess, what is your take when you hear that and see all these articles and all these, kind of concern about all students are just cheating with ChatGPT? What is your reaction to that vibe in the air right now?
It's very interesting to me because I actually had like a similar, not situation, but I had a similar, presentation, sort of like interview situation with another Duke AI group. And they were basically asking us, and a lot of it started with like, are you pro AI or anti AI? So personally, because I am in the tech field currently, at least, I am very pro AI, and I do definitely think there are issues with students cheating and like using AI towards their advantage when it comes to like homework or like classes and just like kind of like getting their busy work done very quickly. And I think that connects also back to like the education system as well, because you can make information, you can make homework and things like that that won't be answered easily by AI. I think that if you're making engaging course material, you're doing things and like putting your full effort into your job as like a teacher and as an administrator, you can do and create work that cannot be completed by AI, because AI isn't going to teach you anything. If you don't understand the concept material itself, AI is not going to help you, because it'll easily show if you talk to a student who's using just AI, they don't know what they're talking about. Like even me, like currently in Code Plus, we use AI a lot of times to help with our code and help with things like that. And I always say, like, I am not a coder. Like a lot of people, in Code Plus, like they're either like an ECE major, like they're currently a CS major, but I'm a mechanical engineer, so I don't know how to code. So ChatGPT can write code, but if I'm not doing my extra work and learning what it actually does, I'm not going to be able to understand anything. So back to your question, kind of, I think ChatGPT and a lot of these other AIs, they can help with the busy work, but when it comes to actually education, AI can't get you there.
This idea of a dream of a tutor, the AI chatbot tutor, that's not what you're sold on necessarily. Like somehow walking you through learning all these things. That's not what you're, no.
No, because AI can help. It can give you like options like look into this, or like give you steps in how to learn something. But if it's just regurgitating information, that's not learning. And I think that's a lot of times with our education system, you're doing homework that's telling you to fill in the blanks or just regurgitate information. And that's more of memorizing than actual ingestion of the knowledge itself.
Yeah. So the one of the things that I've heard, and I think, even when I was talking to the folks at Duke there, that there's a concern that there's almost like that AI could be almost like a performance enhancing drug of sorts, like like the way that is in sports, because students that have it can just roll through the schoolwork and just have AI do it, and then those who don't are maybe going to have to take all this time, and it won't they won't be able to keep up. I don't know. What do you think of that idea that there's something kind of like akin to like that sort of it's going to become like necessary, or maybe it already is, for students to do well in a college?
I don't think it's particularly to do well, but I do think knowing how to use your resources is something that's also a skill that you have to learn at college. If you're in like a class, for example, or you're doing work and you know everyone around you is using some form of AI, not to exactly like copy their work and hand that in, but to help them in some form of way. Similarly, how like a couple years back, AI wasn't an option and people would take that extra initiative to like ask their teacher more, stay in office hours more, things like that. So it's just like, college is a place you're supposed to learn how to use those resources that you also would definitely use in the real world. So I don't think it's as much as like people are at more of an advantage towards others. It's just like some people know how to utilize those resources a bit more, because aside from like ChatGPT Premium and all that like extra stuff, ChatGPT itself like is free. Like you can go and find an AI platform, whether it's ChatGPT or another one, that can fill in your work. I think that it's almost more confusing when you're in school, you know how your peers work, you know how students around you are working, and if you're choosing yourself to not use AI to at least help you with little things, it's a bit more confusing nowadays, especially in the fact that our world and just like how society is moving is more towards that. So you can't I know people who are like, oh, I don't want to use AI at all. Like, kudos to them and kudos to anyone like that. But like, you're almost making your life more difficult now because you know other people are using it and you can also use it as well. So, yeah.
Use it. And you're saying appropriately, though.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So how would you describe your peers? Like, what percentage would you say of students at Duke are using AI in some way to work on their projects, whether it's allowed or not?
I would say definitely most. If I could say 100%, I don't want to say that, maybe like 97%. So, yeah.
So 97% are using their something.
Yeah, some form of AI, not even aside from like appropriate or not, like everyone, even like faculty and staff, like Duke now has its own instance of ChatGPT itself. So we're almost being told to use it now.
I see. And are people starting to use that? It just opened, right?
Yeah. So at least people in Code Plus, like my group is using it because it gives you like a higher model than the free one, I'm pretty sure. Because I think the free one is just like ChatGPT 4, but like this one has like O4, which is like a learning and reasoning model. So can like help get your better responses and get more accurate like information.
So it's not a hard sell when it's like they've bought you this tool.
Yeah.
And you're saying professors are down with this too. They're using it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for every professor.
Oh, sure.
But at least the ones that I know, they're like, use your resources, especially like, because right now I'm engineering, and engineers specifically, it almost makes their job easier too, in a sense. You're not having students ask you continuously like the same questions over and over and things that aren't actually like if your information is able to be found online, a lot of times they'd rather spend their time answering questions that actually would take a lot of information, a lot of time to produce an answer for, instead of just like quick things that students can find themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what is this? I guess, what does it look like? I mean, is there, because I was struck before by like, oh, maybe in the old days, a student might have to go to the professor more, which of course, like, there's positives to that of like building relationships, like that professor then can write you a recommendation for that internship or, but I guess then again, it's nice to get the answer 24/7. So I see trade-offs in all.
Yes.
Can you describe, like, I don't know if this is possible, but like, you're, in the midst of students doing their college work, undergraduates, modern today, like, what does it look like? Do you go to the library and just see people using AI, or is it not really a visible, noticeable thing? It's just do you hear people talking about it? Like, how do you know that, I bet you're right. Like, how do you know that like probably 97% of students are using AI, but like, what does it look like, feel like? Can you paint a picture?
Maybe it looks more of like when you're talking to someone, or like you're stuck on a certain problem and someone else is stuck on that same problem, whether it's like homework or like a problem set you had to hand in, or just like basic understanding and comprehension of the material that you're presented with. Purely just like, oh, ask ChatGPT. Like, just ask ChatGPT. If ChatGPT can explain it to you, especially if you've already gone to your teacher and whatever they're saying to you is not clicking, a lot of times, because a lot of these language models and a lot of these ways, like ChatGPT and all these other instances, you can say, explain it to a 5-year-old. Explain it as if you were explaining to a 5-year-old. Explain it as if you were explaining it to a very specific demographic or a very specific thing that can help it resonate more with you and help it understand. So at least for me, like in my past math class, me and my friend, we used to sit and do these problem sets that we do every single week, like for hours. So we just do them. And like, we're stuck on a certain problem, and the engineering schedule itself is very strange and very rigorous, especially at Duke. And we had a lot of issues with like times that our professor's office hours would be. We'd have to take another class at that time. So none of us were able to make it to the office hours this time. So a lot of that was like, ask ChatGPT to explain it to you. And while ChatGPT, like, I think it depends on also the level of like class that you're doing. So we were doing like linear algebra. So that's a lot like matrices, vectors, all that sort of things. And ChatGPT is not the best at that sort of thing, just because of the formatting and like how these matrices are. But I think that it's able to give us like a basic understanding that because we have the prior knowledge from sitting in class, we're able to understand that easier.
So that's what you mean by it can't teach you just like raw, like starting from zero.
It cannot teach you starting from zero, yeah.
I see. But it's like you sit through a lecture, you're back at your dorm or library, and you're working on the problem, you thought you could do it, and then you're like, oh, wait. And that's the moment where you might ask ChatGPT. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay, so it is standing in for like, it's like a Google search, but better.
Literally. That's a perfect way to put it. Yeah.
And so it's not I guess that's the other thing I've been covering colleges for a long time. Like, how different really is it? I wonder. I mean, you're going through just now, you've done 1 year, but like, I wonder how different it really is from like Googling.
I would say it definitely is. I think Google, especially in the term like the realm of like math and STEM and that sort of stuff, when you're looking up a very specific problem, you can't do that on Google because Google a lot of times has never solved that problem. They can just give you similar examples and like, oh, this other problem that's somewhat similar to the one you're presenting me with has been solved this way. But ChatGPT is very like, I hate to say intelligent, but it's very smart. So it can sit there and solve that problem right there for you, even if no one else has ever, because of the knowledge and the prior reasoning that that it has.
I see. And so it's different.
Yeah, very different.
And I guess Google could not write your paper for you.
No.
So that's different. I mean,
Yeah.
I think a lot of professors are worried because I hear you, and I definitely have heard even professors are down with this, like, make the assignments harder, change the you know, the curriculum and or what the assignment is. But that's a lot of work.
Yes.
And a lot of teachers, you know, they're doing research. You know, professors are doing a lot of other things. I guess the trick, from what I hear, is that it's not so easy for professors to just update all these assignments. But maybe they need to anyway. I don't know.
It's definitely not easy, and especially from someone like, I don't have the perspective of a professor. I don't know what their day-to-day looks like at all, but it definitely would not be easy to change your whole curriculum if you've already established a way of teaching for, especially like people who have been here for like 20 years and things like that. But I do think there's already flaws with the system that especially has homework or that connects learning to regurgitation. Like, that's like the biggest link that I'm even seeing, like even back in high school and now seeing it in college. Like, learning itself is just memorization right now. So, but a lot of these times, these teachers, these like very well acclaimed teachers who already know all this information themselves, they don't understand that from the student who knows nothing, that simple regurgitation maybe for them is enough to spark their memory, but it's not enough for us to learn. So yeah. So that's where it kind of ties back into ChatGPT. Like, ChatGPT is not going to teach me how to do linear algebra, but it's able to connect the amount of learning, quote unquote, that I'm able to do from regurgitating information to actual, like, understanding. Because it's able to fill in those little gaps that I possibly missed in lecture or possibly my teacher didn't know that they had to say.
So is AI just the latest tool, like the web or email, that we will soon figure out how to responsibly use to fill in gaps and help more students be successful? I keep thinking back to earlier tech innovations and how AI compares to previous things like 3D printing, which over time, researchers found some pretty dramatic uses for, as I learned when I took the tour of the CoLab.
On the topic of more serious outputs, this is the Bluesmith room. Bluesmith is our professional, sort of high-end and professional, as well as largely medical these days, 3D printing and fabrication services.
In addition to that wall of 3D printers that I saw when I walked in, which those were making things that look like trinkets, the center has other, more high-end equipment that's reserved for serious research. One example is in this Bluesmith room, where there's something called a digital anatomy printer. It's made for medical applications. This large gray device, about the size of a deep freezer you might keep in the garage to store some Costco food, is called the J750 Digital Anatomy Stratus Printer. And it costs about $750,000.
So we have a pretty special relationship with the pediatric cardiology unit here at Duke. They have some folks on that team that are really sort of forward thinking in terms of how they can use medical imaging and things like that. And so we are now sort of part of their clinical process in complex cases is that they will do the anatomy scan of the heart for the patient. They're about to go under some kind of surgery the next few days or whatever. They'll send us those files. We will print the heart for them, and then they use that as sort of part of their surgical preparation process. So for example, think about like a kid's sternum. There might only be like a 2-inch opening in their chest. Their visibility might be bad. They have these long tools, that they have to go in that are sort of, they have to think about their entry angles and their sort of approach, how that, if the part that they need to operate on is not on the top of the heart. How are they going to get to the back? How are they going to get to the part that they need to? And so having that physical object, you see them take their pens and like start thinking about like, what is their angle going to be to get to that part? Sometimes they'll like sort of digitally excise part of it, like just put a hole here so they can see through to the part that they actually want to see. Think about what that approach angle is, and sort of helps them do their prep, decrease anesthesia time, be as prepared as they can be for the time when they're actually doing the surgery.
We have no idea how experimental some of these surgeries actually are, or how last minute they're improvising. When they first sort of pitched this idea to us many years ago, we were thinking like, don't you already have access to this on a computer screen? Can't you kind of like rotate it on there anyways? And what they said to that was, hey, why don't you come watch an open heart surgery on an infant? And so me and one of our colleagues who was here at the time, we went and did that. And I mean, talk about sort of your stomach dropping inside your body, right? You have this moment of like, wow, like what is happening here? There's a child on this table. And all of a sudden, they're everything they've planned for, when they actually get in there and see it, sometimes it changes. Sometimes it's not what they thought, or they're going to do something differently on the fly. Patient's already under anesthesia. As they explained it to us, the ability for them to have actually held a model, an accurate model of that patient's heart, and done all this, hands-on, real experience, is a game changer for them. So that's been just one of the most rewarding projects we've had to work on and get to continue to work on, in my opinion.
As a father of two little kids, it's heart dropping. I can imagine to see a young child like lying, having their heart operated on. Wow. So you saw that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. We stood there. It added a different perspective to the work that we were helping them do.
That visit you're hearing was back in early summer. And since that is a long time ago when it comes to a topic like AI that's moving so fast, I wanted to get an update. So last month, I called back up Evan and Michael for a short Zoom call to hear how things were going. The biggest surprise, they said, was that fewer people than they thought were using a part of Duke GPT that lets users compare the answers that various chatbots give to any query. Instead, more people are just coming in looking for the basic ChatGPT tool, and many want help with just how do you use this thing.
The level of knowledge in this area is low. Like if you have these like two continuums, and one is what people know about AI and how interested people are in AI, we're like here.
You can't see this if you're listening, but Evan is holding his two hands very far apart here.
Which is, it's not somewhere I've ever really experienced before in 20 plus years of doing this. Like everybody wants it. Everybody's reading about it. It's buzz. How do we use AI? Like people that don't even know what AI stands for and call it GTPs are like, how do I revolutionize my department? I'm falling behind. We're not doing enough with AI. And so like, there's so much just activity in the space, while the level of understanding is just like at a 1 out of 100 still for most. And so that's our restructure.
1 out of 100. So it's So your hand was way up here for interest and way low on the screen for and knowledge.
So suddenly we're faced with this like, hey, getting people access to like try 3 different open source models to understand the performance of them is not where we are. And yeah, there are some people who want that, right? But like that's the niche. The majority of them are like trying to figure out what the user interface looks like, or how to do this at all, or like, is it the same as a Google search? Or and so we've restructured those pages to be like, hey, go try these very simple things. We've also been trying to get people to a lot more trainings and sort of lower the level of entry and barrier to entry, to kind of like re-envision what it's going to take to get through this fall a bit, right? The provost is doing trainings with their senior leadership team, and that's not IT people, right? That's the deans and sort of senior academic staff at Duke, and he's having them all, get together and be trained by folks from our team and folks from our learning innovation team, and have them do some project work, and so that like this fall they can hit it sort of understanding how would they use AI to better their departments? How might their faculty be using AI to teach? What does it look like to enable this and support this at an administrative and academic level? So yeah, it's just kind of a refactoring of our entire. I think we're quick to come at it from a techie. People are going to want to analyze this type of data, and we're going to have to do dynamic integrations in this way, and we are going to have to do that. But like, It's not what most of them care about.
So I had to end on this question that I keep coming back to, which I really was curious to hear how these folks who decide what tools to offer on campus would think. I feel like there's this big question of like, how is AI different than previous technologies like the 3D printers and all the things that college IT departments provided before that, early to do email addresses to people back when that was novel a million years ago. Like, as you see this evolve, do you still see this as kind of a continuation, or is there something special or different about AI from what universities need to do to get this right?
I mean, I think AI is a generalist technology in a way that most things are not. And so I think the criteria for that is that it's applicable to everyone, right? And like like email, internet, the plumbing IT stuff, right? The things that are like just core to doing business to everybody. 3D printing, I can certainly imagine a lot of cool applications of 3D printing for a variety of different areas across the university, but that doesn't mean it's a generalist. It means that there are some cool use cases, but it doesn't need to interact with everybody's work or life or anything like that. And I think AI is a generalist technology, which means that it's going to probably impact the majority, let's say, of people at Duke in a way that not every technology does. And so I think that's why this strategy is sort of reflective of that, where it's not like we're creating like an AI group here. We're trying to both solve the problems of all these different groups that have projects and ideas about how they can incorporate this technology, but also we need to learn broadly how we can actually support this stuff to be thinking of this generally as like a for everyone IT thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't personally think it's truly different. I mean, I think it is the next thing, but it's massive. It's massive and it happens so quickly, right? Like the things Michael just, I agree 100%. It's more like the internet than it is 3D printing, right? It's not a niche thing. It's not like it just sort of offers a new functionality for some people. It's big. It's like it's truly for everyone. But if you look at the internet, that happened over like a huge period of time, right? Like
Right.
sort of ramped up over many years.
Decades.
People
Yeah.
learned to provide services on it and new ways to search it. And like all of a sudden AI is just like, no, like figure it out in a few months, everybody, right? Like it's like maybe, realistically a year or two. Like it became a bigger thing publicly in the last couple of years. But like all of a sudden the pace of it is just massive. And I think you can see some of that in how we're responding structurally, even as an IT organization. Like, we kind of toyed with, do we need an AI unit, right? It's like, no. I think where we landed is maybe no. Like, there's going to be some specific AI pockets, like AI developers in a few areas. And so, but realistically, it's so broad that it's like a unit can't tackle it. If you look across an IT organization, it's like you've got the network folks, development folks, infrastructure folks, teaching and learning people, database people, analytics people. It's like software, it's all AI is going to touch all of it. And so instead of like creating a silo for it, it's become more of a, how do we encourage everyone to learn this? How do we get everybody more involved? Like people in all 300 plus people are going to have at least a baseline level of competence in this space. And so that's where it's a little different, right? And more like something like the internet or email, but also just really big and complicated.
I'm always curious to hear from folks out there. If you have thoughts on the episode, please send me a short email or maybe a voice memo you can attach to an email and send it to jeff@learningcurve.fm. This has been Learning Curve episode 4. I've got some exciting episodes in the works, including a collaboration with some student journalists, so keep listening. If you like the show, please tell a friend about Learning Curve or post about it on social media to help get the word out. Our music is by the very talented musician, goes by Komaku, and our episode art is by an AI bot. I used Midjourney. I'll be back in 2 weeks with more on how education is changing in this AI era. Thank you for listening.